Today, we have a very special guest that's going to give us the insights of how his organization is going to sell over 1,000 homes this year. Welcome back to another episode of All or Nothing in Real Estate. I'm your host, Matt Smith, the founder of All or Nothing in Real Estate. This podcast is a movement to give back to this industry, has given so much to me and my family. And guys, if you follow this for a while, you know that I've been promising we're going to have some very special guests on the podcast. We're going to be learning from industry experts from all aspects. We had the database call with the database master, Travis Halverson, a few weeks ago. And today we have a very special guest that's going to give us the insights of how his organization is going to sell over 1,000 homes this year. So without further ado, my good friend, my comedic friend, he has comedy that's a passion. He does improv on the side. He's from Salt Lake City. He runs a huge brokerage of over 200 agents, and they're on pace for over 1,000 transactions this year. Aaron Drussel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. This is awesome. I appreciate you having me on. This is like the real title of your podcast, because you're all and I'm nothing. So it's like the perfect all or nothing. This is it. So it's perfect. Perfect branding. So
I love it. I love it. It's definitely not true, but there comes that comedy, right?
that's good. That's good.
I
Yeah.
love it. Aaron, so introduce yourself a little bit to the audience. Tell them a little bit about your background, your story. Who is Aaron?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to bore people with this whole thing. So, I mean, I got into real estate many years ago. What's interesting is the first place I interviewed at told me that I would not make it in real estate. So I was not hired at my first job interview. And the second brokerage actually hired me to work in real estate. And that was a little over 22 years ago. And the day comes someday, I will go back to tell that first broker that when I finally make it, I'm gonna go back and tell him like, hey, like I finally did it. But yeah, but that was the thing. Like I was a slow start in the real estate business, and then I just kind of built up my own production. So I was a solo agent for many years. My best year ever as a solo agent, I did 87 transactions as a solo agent, which almost like that burnt me out.
Yep.
Holy cow. That was rough. And but then the next year I started a team, did that for a couple of years, and was doing that for a while. And then I started the brokerage. So that first year, like after a couple of years, got kind of burnt out. Started a real estate team, did that for a couple of years, and then we built up the real estate brokerage after that. And so that's kind of my quick backstory over the last 20 years of real estate. And then as Matt mentioned on the side, I did get into doing improv comedy many years ago, and then that kind of transitioned to doing stand-up comedy, and that happened over the last couple of years. So that's been a fun integration into our real estate business using improv skill sets.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that today. You and I have talked at some of these events that we've been at, and you've told me how you've integrated that into some of your trainings and with your agents, and I think it's brilliant, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. So we'll definitely dive into that.
Cool.
I want to understand a little bit, Aaron, about like comedy is something that when you talk about it, like you're just very passionate about it. And I can just tell like it lights you up. So what got you into comedy? As a successful real estate entrepreneur doing great things, how does someone like yourself get into improv comedy as a hobby that you enjoy?
Well, I'll tell you, here's the thing that was a game changer for me when it comes to leadership. And that was our business grows in direct proportion to our personal growth. So I
100%.
found that as I would hit plateaus in my business, it was a direct correlation to me needing to grow. So it meant that I had to step into the uncomfortable and find things that would challenge me to step into things that would be like things I just saw as awkward or hard or like, ugh. Like anything that gave me pause, to be like, okay. So I would look at the personal growth aspect of it. And so many years ago, I started doing like Navy SEAL training stuff, like doing like SEAL Fit, and went down the CrossFit road, and I do like Olympic lifting stuff. And that was like physically that like pushed me outside my comfort zone. And then I remember thinking I should sign up for an improv class. And I still remember the drive to that first improv class. Driving down the freeway, and feeling those anxious butterflies in your stomach. Like I hadn't felt that in a long time. Like because after a while, like when you're in real estate for a while, like you don't feel that anymore for listing presentations. It's like after the listing presentation, it's not that big of it. But for newer agents, like they feel that for listing presentations. But Matt, if I've said, hey, I got this listing lead, go talk to him. You're like, okay, well, no big. Like you're not going to be like sitting in your car listening to music to hype yourself up and like, okay, Matt, you can do this. Like, okay, let's do this. Like we can do it. Like, all right, Matt, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2. Like you've got it, right? Like you
Yep.
no, it's no big deal. It's a listing appointment. I got it. But I remember on that drive feeling those butterflies and thinking, well, where have you guys been for a while? Like, interest. Okay, good to see you guys. Like, it's weird to feel that again. And I remember walking into that little the venue where they were holding the classes and sitting down, and there's like all these young kids. I mean, they're like early 20s, like college kids, and it's me. Like, well, I don't really fit in, but it's okay. I'm here. I'm in here. And I remember the instructor getting up and saying, welcome to improv class. Today's day one. And one of the founders of improv has always said, improv is a lot like flying a plane in the air and building it at the same time.
Mm.
So welcome to improv. Everybody get up on stage, let's go. And we're like, whoa, 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 what? And we got up on stage and like we had to perform right then. And we got right into it. And I I loved the adrenaline rush and the feeling of excitement, which is really just anxious energy and like it's just a feeling of
Mm.
nerves. But that gave me this process of like, okay, I and what it's done moving down the world of improv, there's some skills that I've learned on communication stuff with lead conversion, lead generation, and I've learned a lot of stuff through that.
Yeah.
But then the piece of stand-up that I've really enjoyed is it has such a direct correlation to real estate because in stand-up, like there's no one coming to save you.
Mm.
Like when you're up on stage, like it's you. Like you're there. And when
Spotlight's all on you.
it's
No one's
all
there to
and
save
it's the
you.
same at a listing appointment. Like when you're sitting at the kitchen table with a seller, like you don't have phone a friend. Like there's no like timeout to like, hey, you know what? That's a great question, you guys. We should pause timeout really quick. I'm gonna step outside and I'll be right back in 2 seconds with that answer. Like sorry, like when you're on stage at a comedy show, you can't just turn your back to the audience. Like, hang on a second, let me Google that really quick. Like, I don't know how to. Like,
Yeah.
it's just you, and I think that is what is such the direct correlation for me. And what it's interesting in the stand-up arena is that you have a lot of overnight successes 10 years in the making.
Yep.
And that's real estate. Like, Matt, like you're a successful agent. People follow this podcast. You go to events, you got the paparazzi following you around. You're signing 8x10 glossy headshots to all the people. But you're a success. Like people know you, they see you. But Matt Smith 5 years ago, Matt Smith 8 years ago, they don't know the work that you had to do to build up to be. They just see the Matt Smith right now. Like, well, I just want to be Matt. Like
Yep.
I see the 2024 version of Matt. Like I just want to do that. And you're like, dude, you got to pay the price, my man.
Yep.
There's some stuff that had to happen behind the scenes to get to where you're at right now. But people see this version and they're like, well, I just want to fast forward to that. Like, how do
Yep.
I, what's the app that I can, where's the Matt Smith app that I can download to become Matt Smith? Like, how much do I pay for that? Like, how do I pay
Yeah.
to become Matt today?
And I think, dude, that's so good. Like success just can't be bought, right? And I think too many people are looking for that magic bullet, the simple approach. How do I skip all these steps? And I learned a long time ago from Andy Frisella. He said that it's your lack of resources are your ultimate advantage because it teaches you a skill that no one can ever take, and that is resourcefulness. Think about all these millionaires, that these trust fund kids or people that win the lottery and they get rich quick or they don't do anything to earn this financial success. What happens to all of them? They lose it And then they go down this path of just mental struggles, and some suicide rates are high, and just all of these things from these people that are living with all these financial resources. But what they didn't learn is the skills that they would acquired along the way to get the long path. And I think too many people want the shortcut, but the actual secret to victory is in the long path, because then you can sustain it. You've
Yeah, I love
earned
that.
it, and no one can take it away.
Yeah, I remember a conversation I had several years ago, back when the market was a different market and people had lost a lot of things because the market shifts. And I had a friend who was in Southern California at the time, and he lost everything. He lost he lost his house, his relationships had gone sideways, like his business had fallen apart, like everything was gone. Like he was seriously he was at ground zero in his life. And I remember talking to him once and I said, "Hey, so this is kind of a weird situation for you. Like what's the next step? Like what are you gonna do next?" And I remember I asked him, like, how are you feeling? He's like, "Good." I'm like, "Well, you seem really positive. I'm trying to understand that." He said, "That's because I'm a millionaire." It's like, uh, how are you a millionaire? You have like no money. He's
Yeah.
like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm a millionaire. I've been a millionaire. I just don't have money right now, but I'm a millionaire. Like and that was like so profound to me. I was like, oh, he's just a millionaire with no money. Like, but he sees himself as a
Yes.
millionaire and he'll be back into being a millionaire again. He just like his mindset was so different than someone who's like, oh yeah, I have no money. And he's like, this is just a temporary state. Like this is not who I am. Like this
Yep.
is just where I'm at right now in my season. But I've made it before and I'll just make it again. No big deal.
That's so good. That was a goosebump moment for me. That is very profound. And it's just like I've actually been asked this question before. Like, what would you do if everything that you've acquired, or the success, the assets, the whatever you want to call it, the Matt Smith now version, if everyone took everything away from you, what would you do? And I said, well, I would get it back twice as fast.
Totally. So much
Right? Like,
faster.
because I've earned it, right? And I know what it takes to get it. And no one, and that goes back to that point, is that the guy being a millionaire, he's not a millionaire on paper, but he is where it counts, in his
Mhm.
mind and his mindset and his thoughts and his heart. And he's built the skills of a millionaire, so he knows he will be a millionaire.
Yeah. I mean, how cool would it be if I mean, we'll pitch this to John and see if he's open to it. John Cheplack.
Yeah.
Well, we should just do a reality show of top agents who get dropped into a new market, and we
Oh, I'm
track them
in.
for 60 days and 90 days in the 6 months, and just say, and we just go, it's just a top agent new market,
Yeah.
and you just track this on a YouTube channel. Like, how long do you really think if I took you and dropped you in South Dakota before you started to make some impact in that marketplace? Like no,
Give me
nobody
90
know
days.
you to start
90
out.
days, and I'm on everyone's radar.
That's what I'm saying. It would be so fascinating to
With
watch.
with zero money, by the way.
Yeah, no, zero money. Like you're just moving into a marketplace. You're like, okay, new guy on the scene. Here we go.
Yep.
It would be fascinating to take a couple people and have like a contest and say, like, okay, you have 90 days. We're gonna track it. And after 90 days, we're gonna see where your production's at. Like, here we go. Like you just have like you're gonna start from scratch and you
Man,
just
that's got
follow
my
the scene.
competitive juices flowing. I want to do that now. I love it.
Dude, how crazy would that be? Like you would be
That'd be so good.
because you check in and like who wouldn't want to watch that show? It would be fascinating. We go on chiplacktv.com and you're watching this like this show that's out there that's tracking these top producers in different markets.
Dude, yeah, I love it. But like, I think too that the fact that I'm getting excited right now and that your brain went there, like that proves that point, right? Like,
Mhm.
that doesn't scare us. That excites us. And it's because that we've I don't want to say there's no right or wrong way, right? So I'm not saying it in that context, but we've put in the work and we've built the muscles, we've earned the scars, we've got the calluses from the work that we've put in to earn that opportunity, that if we do that, we're excited versus nervous.
For sure. It's like a pro athlete who switches teams.
Yep.
Like they're not like they put the time in the gym, they put all the time into training. It's just a different venue they're playing in, but they don't get all out of whack because they put all the effort in behind the scenes to get to where they're at.
right. And I think, dude, like I'm going to use this to context for conversation I was having today, as a matter of fact. How many agents right now listening to this are concerned with these changes that are the unknowns in our new landscape of real estate? How many of them, their version of put me in a new market, are they are going in a new market come August, right?
Mhm.
For most agents. Um, and are they excited about it, or are they nervous? And I think if you're one of the people that are nervous, there's always unknowns. And I'm not saying that don't be aware of the unknowns, but I'll just tell you that my message to my team, as soon as I heard it, I said, this is awesome. This is the game changer. This is an opportunity for us to separate ourselves even further. And like that's just what I believe, because I have the confidence and I'm willing to do the work and I'm willing to acquire the skills, and I've already earned that through a lot of different things that I've went through in my journey. And I think those agents that are really nervous or really scared are the ones that should probably spend some time self-reflecting, and they should probably have an honest conversation with themselves and ask them why they feel that way. And
Oh,
have
I
they
was,
done the
yeah.
work necessary in order to win in that marketplace? Or are they going to play the victim card and say, well, it's not fair because I'm going against Aaron and Aaron's just going to beat me? Well, what does Aaron have that you don't? It's just important that I think that we as agents right now just have that honest conversation with ourselves. And if right now, if you're scared and you're nervous and you don't know what it's going to take, that's fine. It's not wrong, but you're wrong if you don't do something about it. And you better start now, because this is going to be separation season for our industry, what I truly believe. And I think that the agents that are proactive about it, the agents that have the confidence and have built the skills that are going to be required in that marketplace, are the ones that are going to absolutely thrive beyond their wildest dreams.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. I mean, when you look at the market to me is like the waves of the sea. The waves go up and they go down. It's like the tide. It goes, and there are those agents who will sit at the shoreline and get pounded by the waves and not
Mm,
understand why it's happening that way. And there are others who will just grab a surfboard and just ride the waves. Like whatever the waves do, they'll just ride them. There's like, yeah, all right, got it. Waves are up. Okay, cool. Oh, we'll ride those. Waves are down. No big deal. We'll ride those. Like they'll just ride the waves. But then there are others who become so enthralled and so obsessed by the height of the waves and the dynamic of the waves. And then they think that their over anxiousness and stress will somehow change the ocean current to
mm,
reflect what they want. And that's just like the ocean's going to do what it does. You can't control the marketplace. And if you're going to be
yep.
obsessed about controlling the marketplace, that makes no sense at all. But I find that most agents, they don't move forward because of either overwhelm or because of fear. And
Mm,
fear really is just like the adult version of fear is just stress. So we
sure.
don't call it fear. It's just anxiousness or anxiety. But there will be a lot of people in this current marketplace who will see this as a great reshuffling of the deck. And they're going to say, this is my chance to get a new hand, like a new like set of cards. Like that what we've had in the past, like this is a great chance to put new dealt cards out for everybody, and you can now play a new game.
Yeah.
And there are those who sadly have had experience over the last couple of years, and they think that's good enough to be in this market because they have the trophies from the last couple of years, and they're like, yeah, but I did this, like I know what it takes. But what they don't realize is they were running a race that was all downhill with the
Yeah.
wind at their back, with roller skates on, and they think they're a good runner because the market allowed the success to occur. Whereas right now, there's going to be separation, as you mentioned, because those who are willing to show up are going to claim their fair share and maybe a disproportionate amount of the marketplace because of those who think that what they did in the past is good enough, which it's not.
Dude, so good. I love your analogies. Like I'm just picturing someone with roller skates going down a hill, and like that's what agents experienced over the last several years. This
Yeah.
last year, for depending on your marketplace, maybe not so much, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's a lot of people that are
there's
still,
changes to it.
yeah,
But 2 years ago, year and a half
yep,
ago, like you were in an inner tube in the river, and it took you down a river, and you thought you were this great,
yep,
amazing. Like, dude, the river took you to where you're going.
yeah,
Like Like it was, you're sitting in a river, like
But
relax. Like,
now, what if, let's use a swimming analogy, right? So I was going to use the downhill analogy. Like you had rollerblades on. Now you got to have hiking boots on and you've got to climb a mountain.
yeah, you're going
Are you
uphill.
willing to take the next step and climb the mountain? Right? Like that's what it takes. And that mountain is different for different people with different goals, different skills, etc. But you're not going with the current anymore, right? And you're swimming against the current, to use your swimming analogy, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
are you willing to do it or are you not? And if you're not, that's okay. But I would just encourage you to have that conversation with yourself now versus later. Because those that choose to make that choice consciously now will be the ones that thrive when it's time for that to happen, because it
Yeah.
doesn't happen overnight.
And I think one of the biggest things that I've realized, especially over the last several months, is the people who take action are the ones who get rewarded.
Yep.
And you could exist in this market a couple of years ago and take very little, if no action, and business just showed up. But now it requires action, and there is a fear for many that if they take action, it's going to create some sort of failure, and they don't want to make a mistake. But the thing is, you and I make mistakes faster than anybody else because we recover from them quicker.
Yep.
So like we embrace mistakes because top producers move into a world where mistakes are just like the P&L is profit and lessons. And you don't see it as a loss. Like you just like, no, that's a good lesson. Got it. Check the box. All right, I'm not going to make a mistake again. Learn from it, move on.
Right.
But so many people are like, I don't want to make a mistake. Like, dude, we have made, like, if you look at your real estate career, if it's anything like mine, dude, it's just littered with so many mistakes that have like been things that I've learned from.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's a good lesson. Cool. Not going to do that one again. Whew, that was expensive.
So
Moving
good.
on.
That's how I tell my agents that all the time. Like they're like, Matt, how'd you do that thing? How'd you do this thing? I've done it wrong so much that I've learned what right is
Yeah.
by not doing it the right way. And I think I got this quote from one of my agents, actually. She runs my Lake office for me. She's sales manager now. She said, you're not good at it because you haven't been bad long enough. You have to
Yeah.
be bad. You're supposed to be bad. That's how you get good.
Yeah. So here's a concept I was talking to one of my agents about the other day. And here's just like this thought I was playing with. And that is, what if success was that you had to strike out 100 times? Like you had to strike out 100 times, and you have a group of people who they think that if they pace out 100 at bats over a longer period of time, that's in their best interest to wait that out. Versus someone who's like, all right, 100 strikeouts, like let's do it. I'll do it in the first couple of weeks. Like let's just knock it out.
Yep.
But there are those who think that their hesitation to get in the batter's box to swing the bat, and they wait it out, and they wait out 6 months to 8 months to like 9 months, and then they think somehow that because they're 9 months further into the game that they're better off than the person who showed up and like they just took their swings in the first 30 days. That person in the first 30 days is so much further ahead than the person who is 9 months hesitant to move into the action of doing stuff. And you have so many people who think that real estate success is just holding on for a longer period of time. And I can't even count how many people I run across who are like, oh, I've been in the business for 10 years. And I look at it, I'm like, it's not 10 years. You've been in the business 1 year, 10 times. Like you've done the same year 10 different times because you haven't learned from that year yet. But they're like, well, I've been doing this 10 whole years. Like, I don't know if I'd call it 10 years of, I don't know about that.
Yeah, man, that's such a great perspective. It's crazy too. I'm going back into my early days, and I remember because I was just a young kid, and I had no choice. My back was against the wall. I just had to figure it out. And I remember going on these appointments, meeting with these people, and they were like, some of them were questioning just because of youth, whatever, right? Like, hey, why should I trust you to buy a house? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, how long you been doing it? I didn't lie. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in face it till you make it. Be honest with people. Tell them the truth. And so I'm like, oh, I've been in the business 6 months. They're like, oh, well, do you have someone looking over? I'm like, I've been in the business 6 months, but I've already got 6 years of experience. And I had a spiel for it. And I gave them the framework. I'm like, because I've done this, this, and this. And I remember like 2 years in, they were like, oh, you've been in the business 2 years. I'm like, yes, I've been in the business 2 years, but I've got 20 years experience. Here's my track record. And it's just because I'm not afraid of those strikeouts. I embrace them.
Yeah.
And I think that the more you strike out, the more home runs you hit.
Oh, you can't help it because you're getting so much experience that you're going to tee off some ball. You're going to make contact
Yep.
because you're in the box so many times that there's only so many pitches they're going to throw at you. You're like, okay, got it. Like I'm getting better at this one. I'm just swinging the bat a lot, and I'm just going to swing it so many times. Doesn't matter. But you have so many people that wait out their perfect pitch,
Mm.
and they sit on it and they sit on it and they sit on it, and then they go. Then they tell all these stories, war stories about the pitch that they could have swung at that they didn't. But had they swung at it, oh, that would have been the one. Then they reminisce about it, lunches with their friends, like this one time I almost went on this one appointment that I almost did this thing. And you're like, oh, congrats on almost doing something cool. That's great. Good for you. Good for you.
And man, it's so good because I think there's so many people that like are just sitting on the sidelines watching the game go by.
Oh, that is the number one issue that holds most people back is that they don't feel they're ready. So you have people that are getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. And it's the person on the sideline that's stretching out, retying their shoes, like one more stretch,
Yep.
making sure they have the right outfit on, making sure they can just like, they're just like, they don't want to like mess it up. They're going to like, they'll step on the playing field in a second, but no, I need to stretch out one more time. Let me watch game film a little bit more. Let me watch a little bit more game film. I don't want to I don't want to make a mistake. And because they're so committed to being perfect, and honestly, I think part of the problem, and this is gonna be a deeper thing, but I help teach new agents who are getting their real estate licenses. Like, so I'm
Yeah.
talking to people who are down that path. I know you guys do some stuff with the real estate schools.
Yep.
What's ingrained internally and subconsciously for people is I got to pass a test in real estate. I've got to have perfection. I got to know all my stuff. I can't make mistakes. And we teach them the rules of the game, which is like, here are all the penalties. Here's how you might go to jail. Don't do the bad stuff. Like, don't these are all the things that are illegal. Don't do this. Like, don't stay out of trouble. So there's like inherently built into people when they get into real estate. Ooh, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to mess this up. I want to be perfect. I want to do all this stuff. And then they step into real estate, and then they pass their background check, they get their license, and then there's already ingrained in them like, okay, I got to be perfect. Here we go. And then we have to retrain them now when they get into real estate to say, okay, all the stuff you learned about not making mistakes, that's all over.
Yep.
Because now you have to embrace mistakes. So welcome to real estate. All the stuff that you've been told that you can't mess up on, you're not going to mess up on it because you've got some guidance and help. You've got to embrace mistakes. And it's like so counter what they've been like groomed to do. It's a different breakdown mentally for some people. Like, oh, wait, but I don't want to I can't talk to my friends yet because if they ask me a question, I don't know the answer to it.
Yep.
I don't want to look like a dummy. You're like, you're not going to know all the answers. You have to step into it. You have to step
That's so
into it.
good. One of the first things that I teach people is how to pivot in those conversations. And I tell them the face it till you make it. Don't fake it, face it. And when someone ask a question or has a comment that you don't have clarity on the answer, it's very simple. Aaron, that's a great question. Let me look into that and I'll get back to you this afternoon or tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then move on. Right? Like that's it.
But the agents who are struggling, they feel that looks bad. Like, does that make sense? It's like for you and I, it doesn't make like if somebody asks me a question, they're like, hey, Aaron, on the east side of Salt Lake City, what's the average appreciation rate on Thursdays on a full moon on the second part of the month if there's an overcast? I'm like, dude, that's a weird question. I have no freaking clue.
Yep.
Who cares? But I'll look it up. But for a new agent, like, well, I have to know the answer to that. Like, I don't want to look like a dummy. Like, if I don't know the answer, it doesn't mean I'm not good.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, it doesn't phase
You will
me.
never know the answer. I learn something new in this business every single day.
Totally. Totally. Yep.
And so I think if someone would just role play and script that and just like obviously I gave the short version, but like just make them feel good. Because some people ask difficult questions to test you and they just to fill it out, right? You get to know people and you get to know what they're maybe it's a real question, maybe it's they're testing you. Either way, you can either be short and sweet and say, hey, that's a great question. I don't have that in front of me, but I'll look into that and I'll get you the answer tomorrow. Right. And then follow through with the answer. Lean on your broker, lean on your team leader, lean on your resources somewhere to go find it. Right. And then give them the answer. Or maybe you need to even slow that scenario down and be like, wow, Aaron, that's a very thoughtful question. Man, I don't know if I've ever been asked that before. Right. And just what you're doing then is your reverse psychology of this person that's asking you this weird question. Now they feel all high and mighty, like, oh, wow, I made Aaron think.
Yeah.
And it does the exact opposite of what most agents are scared of in this analogy, is that they think it'll make them look inferior. But in reality, what it does is you are now the one that's going to get the answer to their question, and you made them feel better about themselves.
Yep. 100%. Good stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Dude, there's so much there. So I want to go, you mentioned onboarding, you mentioned you got to get your swings in, and maybe there's something that you could take away from this, or I know the audience will. You may already be doing this, but one of the things that we've adjusted in our onboarding, our boot camp, is day one. Day one, number one, our requirements when you start, you have your sphere of influence list filled out and you have it turned in. That's the very first thing you do. We have a pre-onboarding that's you bring it with you. If you don't have it, we set expectations properly. Hey, we take our commitments seriously here at our company. And so it's okay that you didn't do it, but I need you to go home. I need you to go do it. And then I'll see you again tomorrow. And you've got some makeup work to do. Some of them come back, some of them don't. But what does that do for the rest of the onboarding class? When we make a commitment, we keep it. We want people that are committed in our organization, right? It's not, don't make them feel bad. Don't belittle them, but let's set the tone. And the second thing that we do with that is about the at-bats is day one, you get 100 leads from our database. You get no script, no training, you have enough understanding where you know how to pick up the phone and call the person. And you're just calling through 100 leads. And I want you to strike out, and I want you to fail. And I want people to say, I want you to be on the phone and be like, I want you to stumble. But then guess what? At the end of the afternoon, ask everyone, how did it go? What did you learn? And everyone's like defeated and deflated and like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. Aaron, what if I had a script or a dialogue that gave you a talk track to help have a better conversation with these leads? Would you be interested in that? Oh, absolutely. Tell me how to have better conversations with these people. Well, right. And it just, now, instead of me shoving a script or a dialogue or a talk track down their throat or a way to have the conversation, now they're like leaning in and they're like, man, I really need to learn this so I can have better conversations, because they've already taken those at bats, those swings, and they've been like, man, this sucks.
I love it. I love it. I knew they had to come with the 50 database people, but I thought you had them do 30 burpees if they didn't show up with that. But I like how you sent them
hey,
home.
we can implement that.
Either 30 burpees or you can go at home and finish this thing. You guys pick it. So
I love it.
That's
Dude,
good.
there's a couple things I want to circle back on. This conversation has been so good that I wrote these down at the very beginning and I skipped right over them. But you said something that's very crucial. As a leader, you are the lid in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is so good. And I think that a lot of people are listening to this are leaders, but there's some agents that are like, oh, that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
It applies to, because here's the thing, you're tribal leaders. Every single person that's listening to this, you have a tribe. It's your client base, your database that you're working with. If you're a leader of an organization, it's the people that you work with. Like, you are the tribal leader to that group, and you set the pace. And I would say the majority of time that you lose people is because they feel that they're outpacing you. Because they are no longer inspired internally, and they're like, oh, well, I'm passing that person. So who else can I go follow that? Because you're the pace car. And
Right.
if they're feeling uninspired and you're not like doing, which puts more pressure on you as a leader, puts more pressure on me, because every single day I wake up, I'm like,
Pressure is a privilege, my friend.
yeah, I gotta show up. I gotta show up even more, because if I have better people joining me and I want better people to join me, I've got to become a better version of me, or else they're there's no inspiration for them to come on board.
Totally. I have this quote in my office. So this was given to me by a past client. Their kid actually listened to a video that I did on our
Look
social
at that. I
media,
love
and they
that.
do crafts. And so it's a little chalkboard for those of you listening on audio that says everyone is a leader to someone in their life. And it was a rant that I went on, and I was talking to just to our audience here in our local area. And I used an analogy of like too many people use the excuse of if my boss this, if my parent that, if my friend this. And I just want to encourage people to be the leader that they want in their life, because you have to lead yourself too. And so not only are you leading others, but let's start with leading yourself properly. And you are the lid in your growth. And as soon as you can accept that and look in the mirror, then you can change it. I think it's so important that too many people want better, want different, want change in their life, but they're not willing to accept that they are the barrier to that change or that growth, because
Yeah.
they're the ones asked to change before that
And
changes.
this is the harsh reality, and it will come in hot. And that is, if you are making exactly how much money you should be making right now, like how much money you're making, that's how much you should be making right now. Now, some people are like, no, I should be making more. Like, no, no, based upon your habits, your mental capital, your relationship capital, and what you're doing, you're getting exactly what you deserve in income right now. And if
Yep.
you want to change that, you got to change the recipe of what it's being done. But people think that they like deserve something more, and they feel like they're maybe entitled to something better, and it's like they're getting exactly what they signed up for right now.
100%. Everything in your life, good, bad, and ugly, is a direct proportion of what you have or have not done.
Yep.
It's really that simple. I love it.
Just like painful to hear, right? Could be like,
Oh,
no,
sure.
yeah. It's like nobody wants to hear that.
But also, once you embrace that, and once you realize that, and once that's like deeply, if that's deeply ingrained in myself, I'm by no means perfect, but I also accept responsibility for the shortcomings that I have. And as soon as you just live life that everything is your fault, you live a different life,
Yeah.
because once you accept it, you can change it, you can improve it. But if you always point the finger, then you're just stuck. And it goes back to your surfing or sitting on the beach analogy, right? You're just either getting beat up by the waves or you're riding them. You pick.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. Another thing that you hit on earlier is too many people they wait to get the perfect plan to take the perfect action, and they're trying to perfect whatever it is that they're working on before they take action. And there's something that John Cheplack and Bill Pipes both recognized in me in our coaching relationships. And they said, dude, you just take massive action quickly. Like, you start taking action before we're done with the coaching call. I'm like, well, like, isn't that normal? And I think I take this obsessive and too far, but like, John Cheplack said, you're just ready, fire, and then you'll figure out where you're going. Ready, fire, aim, instead of ready, aim, fire. Like, get ready and go do something. And you mentioned like the building the plane, the comedy analogy or improv. You're building the plane as you're flying. I've never heard that, but I say all the time, part of success in real estate and in anything is you have to build the car while you're driving down the road. It's never going to be perfect. Like, there's going to be a wheel that's falling off. We got to keep going forward and put the wheel on while it's going. You can't just stop and pull over to the side of the road. Take your time. Let's refill with gas. Let's get new tires. No, you're losing to the world. It's passing you by every time that you stop. You got to be able to do it while it's going, because it will never be perfect. But I promise you, imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, that's the thing that holds most people back, because they're striving for perfection, which is impossible to get, but they have to have it just right before it gets released. And I find myself get caught up in that. I think a lot of
Sure.
people get caught up with that thought of like, oh, well, it's not quite good enough. Let me like tweak it a little bit more. Let me work on this a little bit better. And and then the thing is, it passes you by because you've missed the opportunities.
And I think too, like, let's put this in an agent perspective. How many times does an agent try to perfect something? So let me use an example. Let's say that you're going on a listing appointment and you just want to be perfect. You want to find the perfect comps. You want to understand their situation perfectly. And you just spend 3 hours doing research for this listing appointment. And then you get there and the house is completely different than what you expected. Then you get there and their motivation has changed. Right? Like, I literally went on one today. I know you said you're doing this too, but I'm in a 30-day listing challenge right now. And so there's a couple appointments that I'm going on myself. And I went on one today. And their motivation when I set the appointment last week was they're ready to put the house on the market next week. I went there. There's a job promotion. There's a health issue that an in-law may be moving into their home, and they just don't know. It's all up in the air. But if I would have spent all this time prepping to make sure that like we're gonna put this house on the market next week without knowing for sure, all that time is wasted. You've got to be able to pivot, and you've got to be able to connect with a human, because that's really what matters. I'm not saying don't prepare. I'm not saying don't know your stuff. But at the end of the day, most people try to over prepare, and they're not as agile or as adaptive as they could be. And I think like your improv example would be a great perspective on that, because you have to be able to think quick on your feet.
Yeah, my very first improv show, we had this show set up on a Saturday night, and we've been working for a long time on like how to. It was my first show. We're gonna have 150 people there in attendance, and that whole week leading up to it, I had all these super funny ideas. I had like I was writing stuff down, and I usually write jokes every morning. That's like how I get creative. I just write a couple of jokes, but I had all this funny content. I remember getting to we got to the improv place, and we go back in the green room, prepare for the show, and we go up on stage. And the typical improv show is about a 90-minute show. And there's not like, we have a couple games set up, and we do some musical stuff too. We do like a Broadway musical out of like a 3-word suggestion from the audience, and do like a 45-minute Broadway show with music and everything, like creating songs out of nothing. That show was in my mind was rough, because that whole time I kept trying to put in place all the funny things that I had thought of all week to try to interject into the conversations. And I was like, so I was trying to steer conversations to a certain direction because I thought that's where I wanted to go. It was a disaster. It was one of the worst shows because I was so focused on trying to push it to the way I wanted to go. And what I've learned, and I learned the hard way on that one, was the best improv shows, there is nothing planned. And I step on stage, and it's all about listening to the other person, and I'm taking the bricks that they're placing in front of me, and I'm placing my brick on top of it, and versus trying to coerce them or force them or push them in a certain direction. If I'm truly listening to them, then I can play off that scene, and it is a million times better.
100%. And I think like, what if you approached, I think it's an extreme example, right? So don't do this verbatim. But what if you approach a listing presentation as it was improv?
I do every single one. I'm not recommending this to anybody else, but when I show up to a listing presentation, I have like a presentation in my bag. But when I show up to a listing appointment, it's like 5 pieces of blank paper. So I sit down, and they're like, okay. I'm like, cool. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. What do you want to talk about? And they're like, oh, well, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. Okay, great. I just write down, craft the agenda on a blank piece of paper. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's go down this road. And those are my talking points in the
Yep.
listing presentation,
Yep.
is whatever we talked about from that. And it's a blank piece of paper. And I win a significant amount of listings against people who come in with these amazing, like fancy things that they've like brought in with like, and I'm like, here's my blank pieces of paper. And
Yep.
I'm
Dude, you know why? This is so good. And I could tie this to recruiting. I could tie it because it's very in parallel with sales, right? But most people try to feature dump, and they try to make it about them. And me as the agent, I'm going to push my agenda down your throat, and I'm going to convince you why you should choose me, instead of me sitting down, and I start my presentation the same way, right? We have a presentation, we have a process that is duplicatable for our agents, but we start the same way. And we sit down at the table after we do a quick walkthrough, 5 minutes or less, right?
Yep.
Quick walkthrough to build a little rapport and like get everyone at ease and understand the house a little better. But then it's just, all right, let's go to the kitchen table, and I just sit down, and I got my laptop or my iPad or whatever, but I have a piece of paper that I have notes on, and I have an agenda of notes that I need to take for my listing coordinator if we get the listing. But I flip it over to the backside, and I just look straight in the eyes and say, so Aaron, what's most important to me is that you get out of this what is important to you. So what are the 3 things that you're looking for out of a real estate agent you choose? And I just go, tell me more. What else? Have you had any other experiences? Tell me the good. Tell me the bad. And they are helping me craft exactly what I'm going to hit on in my presentation, because what matters is what's important to them. Their perception of what I say is everything. What I actually say is nothing. What are they perceiving of what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we talk over and we try to give them our agenda versus asking questions so we can meet them where they are and actually solve their problems. And when we remove our agenda, we win.
Yeah, that's when we turn into selling, like when we sell versus compel, we're losing. Like we have to become so compelling, and the thing that's compelling is when we talk about what they want to talk about.
Yep.
And when you find out what they want to talk about, and you craft your conversation around that, that's what they're looking for, and that becomes that you're a good listener. You build trust with them because you're talking about what they want to talk about, and that's the easiest presentation ever. Because you're highlighting what they want to discuss. Some people want to talk more about marketing. Cool. We'll spend some time talking about marketing.
Yep.
Other people, I want to talk about commissions. Great. Talk about commissions. Well, what are your commissions? That's a great question. We'll talk about it. Appreciate you asking. Cool. Let me write that down.
You know, the first question I got hit with today, well, how are you guys handling this NAR lawsuit stuff?
I was just drilled. What NAR lawsuit? I've never heard. I'm just kidding.
And I had a newer agent that shadowed me. And I looked over at her, smiled, because I've coached people how to approach it. And I said, you know what, Aaron, that's a great question. I'm so glad that you're so in touch with what's going on, that you're already aware of that. That saves me a lot of time today going over that you're already in touch. And we will absolutely discuss that today. I'm curious, before I go and tell you my thoughts, what are your thoughts and what's important to you?
Perfect.
In it?
That's good. So good.
Right. And ultimately at the end of the presentation, she didn't bring it up again. We did not discuss it, but that was the first thing that she said. But I heard her. I heard her concerns, and through my presentation, I eased that concern and that pain by just asking more questions. And I think that too many times people like panic, and I see this in my agents' eyes when they come to me like, oh my God, the seller asked this, what do I do? And it's just like, just stay calm and ask questions. Hey, Aaron, that's a great question. What about this NAR lawsuit is important to you, right? It's just like, what parts stick out? Oh, well, I don't know why I have to pay a buyer agent commission. I didn't ever like doing that. This person had bought and sold 7 homes, right? And they're like, I just don't want to do that anymore. She's like, can't we just, at the end of the day, can't we just like charge it as a concession to the buyer? I said, you can do whatever you want. I said, but I will give you my recommendations on what's important and why it's important. She's like, I just don't want to, I want them to pay the commission and the sales price. I said, perfect. What if I told you that's how it's always been done? She's like, huh? I'm like, yeah, it's already baked in there. She's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And you know what I mean? It's just like, we try to talk too much. If you want to be a better salesperson, you need to ask better questions and you need to listen more. It goes back to the old adage, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking, and quit talking at people and talk with people. Meet them where they are, listen to their problems, and then solve their problems, and you make a sale 100% of the time.
Yeah, the best listing agents just ask good questions.
Yes. Dude, I remember, it reminds me of a story. Back when I was growing my team, I brought on an agent that was with another organization, and they were with another company that was a top producing agent in our area. And they shadowed me on a listing appointment, and afterwards they're like, why did you not go over your numbers? And I said, what do you mean? They're like, well, this other agent, they brought the ranking report, they brought this, and all they brought was their presentation was, I'm the best, you should list with me. And they said, you never mentioned once your numbers, and you outsell them 3 to 1. So why did you not mention that? And I said, first, let me ask you a question. Do you think I'm going to get the listing? Oh, without a doubt. Okay. And so what do you think is more important to that seller? The connection that I made with them and the way that I was able to answer their questions and solve their problems, or my ego and how much real estate I sell? Which is more important to that person? And it was just a complete mindset shift. It's not about us. I think we have too much ego in this business. It's about how can we help that person? And as soon as we realize that sales is solving problems, we just need to spend more time figuring out what the actual problem is so that we can solve it. Then we will make more sales.
Yeah. The people who make the most amount of money in our world are people who are really good at diagnosing.
Yes.
You look at doctors, you look at like high priced people, like they're really good at figuring out and asking questions and then having people create self-awareness and like being able to go down that road. It's not like we're paid well to be able to ask the right questions for people to have self-discovery in the process. But if we turn into telling people what they need to do, people don't want to be told. They
Nope.
don't want to be told what to do. None of
100%.
us like it. Like, I mean, I don't like it when someone tells me what to do. Like, and that's a difference maker. And so if you can get to that place where you're asking really good questions, and they will, in the end, make decisions that are going to make the most impact for themselves.
Yep.
Because the safest bet in Vegas is knowing that people are always going to choose what's in their best interest. So you know that what they want to do is in their best interest, and all you have to do is show them that you are the path to help them to get what they want, whatever their best interest is.
So good. So good. I always say that people operate on every human being on the planet operates on the same radio frequency, and it's WIFM. What's in it for me?
Totally,
And
100%.
it's not right or wrong. It just is, right? Like we as human beings are selfish beings. We think about ourselves first. And so if we know that to be true, what can we do to help them fulfill that on how what we have is going to benefit them?
Yeah.
Man, this has been really good. We could go for another hour, but I think we both have other things to get to.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. This has been fun to talk.
Yeah,
So
man, this has been so good. Let's close it out with give us something that leave the people with something that's really impactful, something that's top of mind for you, something that's working really well in your business. Like, what advice would you leave the listeners with today?
I think the secret to success in this business is to continually, well, the secret to success is continually showing up when you don't feel like showing up. There are going to be the days that you're like, ugh, I don't know. And we live in a world of instant gratification. You can push a button on a phone, food shows up at your place within an hour. You can push a button and stuff delivers to your house within a day. There is no real estate app that I could push a button today that a closing occurs tomorrow. Like I can't call a title company like, hey, you got any unrepresented clients closing tomorrow? Because I could totally help them. Like we don't have like a solution to create a closing tomorrow. So what becomes hard is our efforts that are so minimal that we have to do on a daily basis compound over time that we'll see 90 days from now. But 90 days seems like an eternity in today's world. And so it's so hard for someone to stay consistent on the effort for 90 days because we want instant results. We want the shortcut to success. And there are going to be the days where like, done this for 3 whole weeks. I'm not seeing anything. And it's easy to want to tap out. As the ones who can push through that and continue to show up when they don't feel like showing up. That's the secret to this whole business.
Dude,
That's the difference
so
maker.
good. So good. And you and I agree on the 90 days. I share that a lot. And I think that there's so many agents that are on the brink of having a breakout year, having a breakout month, having a breakout day, and they just give up one day too early.
Yeah. Which is so critical to be around people that when you're in that dark place, that you have someone you can call. Like I get, like you're in a leadership role, I'm in a role with agents where those calls come and they're after hours when it's dark outside. It's a Wednesday or Thursday night, and they're just like they're in their head, and that's then all they got to do is just make it to the sunrise the next day.
Yep.
They just got to get through that night and just be like, hey, you're on the right track. But it's so easy to talk yourself out of the process and to think, oh. But the nice thing is that you're still in production. You know how this works. And so for someone to listen to you, like they have a sounding board they can go to that knows what's happening.
100%. And and I think if you're in that struggle, right? If you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just don't know what to do next, like it's super simple. And Aaron laid it out there. He's like, what do you need to do to win the day today?
Yeah. And
And
you know
win
what
the
people
day.
go do? You know what they're going to go do? They're going to go on some lame Facebook group and ask advice to a bunch of people who don't know how to do real estate. The average agent in the country doesn't do anything in real estate. And so what agents are going to do when they're stuck is they're going to go to the masses who's not successful to get advice from a bunch of people who aren't doing any business. And they're like, I'm going to get it. Like I go on this large Facebook group and I asked the advice and everybody gave me advice. I'm like, dude, they all gave advice from their position, which is not even success.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to me, like how many people get caught up with following the masses when the masses are the least successful people in this business.
100%. And it's success leaves clues, right? And that's what I love about this podcast. That's what I love about the circles that I run in, both in the EXP network that I'm a part of and the Cheplack circles, is just like it is proven, right? And I think Aaron has proven himself and his success, which is why he's on the show and shared all this wisdom with you guys today. It's just follow people, ask advice from people that have proven, that have been there and done that. It's not people that talk a good game. It's people that actually do it. And go back to earlier conversation, you can't skip the work. You just can't. It is part of the equation. Now, is there alignment? Are there simple strategies? Are there tiny adjustments along the way that can make a big impact? Absolutely. But the work is still required.
Great stuff.
Love it.
Thank
Aaron,
you for the opportunity. Good stuff.
dude, so good. I appreciate your time, my friend. Hope to see you at the next event. Always good catching up with you. And if there's anything I can do for you, I'm here for you.
Appreciate it. Well, just our t-shirts. When you're all and I'm nothing, then we'll have the all or nothing.
I love it.
Perfect for Halloween. It'll be our Halloween all or nothing. So
I love it, Aaron. And if somebody wants to follow you, where would you send them to follow you? To
on my MySpace, I'm just kidding. Go on my Instagram, go on Facebook. It's just Aaron Drussel. There's only one of us out there, so you can follow me there.
The Aaron Drussel. There you have it. Aaron, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you got value from this episode, which I know you absolutely did, all that I ask is you share it with a friend. Just share this episode with a friend, share this movement. We're doing this completely free to give value. So help give back, help grow. This show is growing each and every week. We appreciate your support and just continue help fulfill this mission of giving back to this industry. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.